Hi everyone, I'm David Gonzalez, one of the producers here at ICIC Intimacy Choreography in Conversation. And I'm thrilled to welcome you back as we continue our fascinating conversation with Tonia Sina. If you were with us for part one, you know just how insightful our discussion has been. And if you're joining us now, you're in for a treat as we pick up right from where we left off. Let's dive into Tonia's experiences and perspectives.
And for the next chapter, the question is, did it go too far? Did the pendulum swing too far? Or is it, where are we in this level of trying to fix a problem by moving forward and not by hanging on to the past and blaming when the time period was such a different situation and everybody thought differently at the time and we're all evolving with it as it goes. And the question is, can we do this in the right way where we still keep actors in control, having autonomy, having body autonomy, having freedom in the rehearsal room, having a safer process to work, to not get assaulted at work or harassed?
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that and just like the micro and macro and the personal and political and all of the dimensions of that. Really appreciate you sharing your story and the vulnerability and honesty of that. Your question about when does the pendulum swing too far is so interesting because I feel like we've seen it not go too far one way for a long time. And I've seen it go too far the other way. To me, where I feel like, or when I've seen that happens, it's when we become precious about those scenes or fearful of this work.
Yes.
But I'm really curious to hear, what do you think is within versus beyond the scope of work, and what kinds of things do you feel like that's pushing it beyond what we're trying to do?
Yeah, that is the question.
Yeah.
I do feel in the next chapter,
Yes,
I disappeared from the movement for about 5 years. I'm still not quite back. I ended up, the pandemic really screwed with me, like it did with everybody. I was on dialysis at the time and couldn't leave my house at all, couldn't work even with a mask on. So I was left completely by myself, isolated, and no longer at the front. I had said I had to focus on my body or else I'm going to die. Like I had put so much into this that I wasn't really focusing on myself anymore. And I kept saying things like, I want to burn out. And in that process, I was doing myself a disservice of, but is that really the right thing to do? Am I really helping anybody if I do that?
Can I just come in here for 1 second and illuminate a person that you did help, which is me? There was a moment in time where there was the Eugene O'Neill 8-day workshop, and I met you there. And amidst all the things that were happening, and I met Daphne too. You pulled me aside one time and told me one of the most inspiring things. If you see a problem or if you see a hole, fill that niche and do what you need to do. That has been that's when I feel like my life expanded into the life that I have now. That one conversation that we had amongst all the conversations. And I just appreciate the fact that you were so determined and so resilient to even be present, that I just need you to know that you have changed my life for good from that moment to now. And I hope that I forever uplift your name and uplift your work. And now you can continue with what you're going to say.
Thank you. Let me cry a little.
Wait, I also got to do a Tonia shout out because you also changed my life. The first intimacy workshop I ever took or heard of was with you in LA in 2018. And it just blew my mind and my heart open about like the intersections of the things that I had been doing, that there was a lane and a field for this, and that there were badasses like yourself, like blazing that trail. And it absolutely changed my life. And like, doing this work has made me better as a director, as a person, is in things outside of intimacy specific. And so just also want to uplift and thank you and Daphne.
Both. My gosh, that's so sweet.
For just the gift of your work and your ferocity.
So yes, you have a lot of impact still.
Yeah, your name is spoken into rooms, even when, the chapter where you were like, I disappeared kind of for 5 years. Yeah. I've been speaking your name into rooms, and you do exist in those spaces, and your spirit and energy.
That means a lot to me.
So as you disappeared, as you kind of had to pull back in order to survive,
yes.
What were your understandings and concepts and opinions about what happens after you pulled back?
Well, I thought I pulled side.
Yes.
I tried to pull side.
Okay.
But somehow, when you hold the door open behind you, sometimes people push you out of the way anyway. And, I really worked. My whole thing was, if I'm going to get this door open, I'm holding it open for everybody behind me. That's what I'm doing. I mean, I'm not going to I'm going to try to get as many people into this movement as possible. That was my standpoint. I was giving it away for free. I was like, you come learn with me. You come learn with me. It wasn't a business. It was a movement. I think when I stepped to the side, just like America does, things became monetized. Mm-hmm. We should be able to make a career out of this work. We should be able to, have a life, make money doing what we do, because it is hard work and it's an art form, and not everyone can do it. And not everyone
and
should.
Artists have to survive capitalism.
We do.
Yeah.
We're terrible at it.
Yes, we are.
Especially right now.
Terrible at it.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
I understand why it happened. I wasn't part of it. I wasn't actually taken along the ride.
Yeah.
I was sort of left to myself, let's just say, while the world changed around me. And I was paying attention to myself as I needed to, in a self-preserving way, because I didn't want to die. I wasn't ready to die. So
we're so glad you're here.
100%.
Thanks. So as I was watching the movement happen from the back seats, was where I was watching people come up, watching all these other different companies come up and starting their own stuff and being like, yeah, I don't know if I agree with that. We're going to start our own thing. Yes. Seeing people specialize in very specific parts of it, like intimacy with minors and intimacy for the global majority, and just all these different specialties coming out of it. That is, of course, where it should go. Of course. It's just like any theater form. It's going to blossom and it's going to hit all the corners that were missed. And on the corners I couldn't get to. So it was simultaneously mind-blowingly inspirational and awesome to watch, while also being extremely painful. Almost like watching your kid go to college, and sort of felt like that. It was like, oh, look how well she's doing. That's so great, like, I miss being at the front. I miss the hustle, and I miss, the adventure and being able to fight and all of that. And when I got my last transplant in 2022, it took a long time to get to it.
Yeah.
And when I finally got to that transplant, long story short, the Mayo Clinic discovered a cure for this disease that I had, this terminal disease that nobody has a cure for. They discovered that I could be cured if I transplanted my liver with my kidney. But what we had learned was that the DNA mutation was formed in the liver. And so if I could trade out my liver with a healthy one, then I would be cured from this disease. And so that's what I decided to do. There's only been 2 people in the world that have done it, one other girl and myself. And I was cured in June of 2022. I was cured of atypical HUS, and my own medical community doesn't really believe that I'm cured. So, because they were told by doctors there's no cure, and there really isn't a cure.
But you fixed it.
We fixed it.
But
I'm no longer on that medication at all.
What?
I haven't taken it in 3 years.
That's incredible.
Completely cured from that disease. I'm still a transplant patient, and I still had, like 30 years of illness.
Yeah.
But I'm no longer dying from a terminal illness. And
wow.
And with rare diseases, only 5% of rare diseases have a treatment, let alone a cure. And I'm cured. So once that happens in 2022, I no longer was fighting a rare disease. I was no longer fighting a movement of intimacy direction because it was being fought for me, around me. So I came out of it going, what am I doing?
Yeah.
What do I do now? I don't even know where I am. I don't know, like there's nothing to fight. There's nothing to, and it actually took a toll mentally on me for a while. And it still does, but I'm coming out of it now.
Good.
Coming out of it, the process of having this movement to fight, having this disease to fight, having all of that at the same time, trying to defend my own reputation against other people's reputations. And then, and losing everything in the pandemic, just losing everything. And then getting a cure and trying to figure out what the hell I'm doing now.
Oh my God, what are you going to do now?
That's the question, isn't it?
Yes. Well, we have been told that you are working on a book. Maybe this is the time for you to talk about those advancements. What's the book?
The book is the origin story. It's essentially what I've been talking about mostly today, but with a lot more detail and how things came to be and what led to what. And also how my personal life and my medical life fed into the intimacy direction movement and forced it forward. Whether or not it is known that that's what it was, but it was a movement that was started with the agenda of improving the industry. And it did that. It's doing that.
It is.
It's doing that. And then also how the sacrifices that I had to make to put that into the world and what it did to my body, how much of that how many years it took away from me, maybe. But also that it never would have happened had I not had this terminal illness that was pushing me to be ambitious and hardworking and antagonistic a little.
Yeah.
I was just wanting to point to people and be like, do better. We can do better.
Yes, and we can, and we are starting to do that now. We do need people who are instigators and people who call that shit out in order to make change happen.
Yeah. And sometimes it ends in maybe not being at the front anymore. Maybe that's the consequence of some of the work that I did and some of the mistakes that I've made. I've made plenty of mistakes. I'm not sorry about anything I've done. I know I've made mistakes and I've probably hurt people along the way, just like we all probably have, knowingly, unknowingly. Right. You can't be passive. You have to be assertive. You have to know that what you're doing is right. And intimacy direction was never wrong. There was no point at which anybody could teach me that it was wrong. Nobody could ever come up with a question of why I was doing it that I couldn't answer in a positive way. And if I had gotten to that point, maybe I would have stopped. Maybe if somebody had convinced me it was the wrong thing to do, but no one ever did because I knew it wasn't the wrong thing to do. It was the right thing to do. And you can tell now, even though there's still resistance, to it.
Of course.
And there was always going to be, just like there's resistance to stage combat.
Yes.
Which is wild.
Yeah. But same thing. It's wild that there's resistance to this, but then we also see where it comes from. But thank you for just like uplifting and naming the very human thing of making mistakes in this work. I think sometimes people in this field feel like we have to hold ourselves to this inhumane standard that if we're doing this work, we can never fuck it up.
Right.
And that's just, that's inhumane and that's impossible. We will cause harm. We will mess up. What matters is how do we handle that? Accountability. Not if we do it or not. But,
and you also can't expect it from other people. Like we have to make sure that we're not judging other people like they can't make mistakes in this work. We can't just assume, well, I didn't teach that person, so they shouldn't be doing this work. Yes. The weird microaggressions that sometimes come with it of whose process is best or does this even matter from this person? It's everyone's contributed to this. This isn't one person's movement. I wrote a thesis, but this would not be here if I hadn't found a team and if that team hadn't found their teams, And if those teams hadn't found their teams,
that's
where we are now. It's grown like an army. And that's how you change an industry. You don't change it by yourself.
No, that's not sustainable.
And it's not sustainable to expect everybody to do it the same way.
What?
Right.
Say that again.
Yeah. I love watching other people. I recently was teaching a workshop in Louisville that I was an impromptu, like, hey, I'm in town. Who wants to do this workshop? And there was like 12 people that came. They were just actors, from Louisville. They didn't know that I was who I was and that I'd started anything. God. So I taught an intimacy workshop with them. And there was one girl there. Her name is Hannah. She's an intimacy director in Louisville. Her name's Hannah. And she was at the workshop. And as I was working with a pair, choreographing the scene, she had training and was saying, well, she would, I could see her tensing up sometimes as I was choreographing it. And I was like, what are you thinking? And she's like, well, sometimes we use these markers, these, anchor points. And I'm like, yes. What is it? Keep talking, and she's like, well, okay. So the anchor point is where you put the thing. And, she was talking about the prop and where it has to stay. Yeah. And I was like, yes, absolutely. Come on out. Come on. Keep bringing it. I want to learn too. I want to learn from you. I'm not done learning. No. I want to see what all these new people are doing. I haven't had a chance to come out and actually go to any workshops to see other people's work. And so whenever I get a chance to do that, it's fascinating. Like, that's brilliant. That's so brilliant. There's many ways to do it. And you find the one that works for you and you use that and you come up with your own. You leave the stuff that doesn't work for you. And that's okay because it doesn't work for everyone. It's different for one. Just like acting.
Yeah, exactly. And it wouldn't be like authentic to a specific person or like an actual response to what room you're in if you didn't allow for less rigidity.
And adaptability, being able to adapt to your situation, be able to adapt to the people in the room, to adapt to the text or the devised work. Being able to decide how you're going to act in university rooms as opposed to in professional theater. Yes. There's all these different permutations that are available, but I think the root of it all is actor advocacy, actor care, giving the people with the least amount of power in the room a voice with what they want done with their bodies and how they want to make contact with other people and other people's bodies, and not even just bodies, but mental, there's mental intimacy, there's emotional intimacy. Roots the actor feels they can be strong doing,
Absolutely.
I really believe that.
And then also what the director and intimacy professional feels tells the story. And we got to put all those ingredients in the cauldron of the soup that we're making, and it'll always taste a little different.
We always teach, I used to teach, the way my method is I never go in with prepared choreography. I just don't. There's always going to be somebody that's like, no, I don't really think I can. Great. Saying no is so great because then I know it's going to be more tailored to you. And it's not going to be what I had in my head. Right. So the collaboration is the main part of allowing to have that sort of conversation and not just to inflict choreography onto somebody, which is the argument against intimacy direction, which is it's going to stifle the actor process. It's going to, take over the job of the director. And as we all know, who have seen this work it never does that when it's going well, when it's doing the right process. You're collaborating with everybody and everyone's input makes the product. And if it was just me, I don't like choreographing without a director in the room because I keep turning around and being like, is this what you want? Am I doing this right? Am I getting the right track? Because if I don't have a director in the room, then I'm just doing it. And then I don't know that I'm getting the input that I need to make the story make sense for what it needs to be. So collaborate. I think the collaboration in the industry of intimacy direction is right now, it has ups and downs. Let's just say.
Yeah.
There's some very strong opinions of how the way people that think the way things should and shouldn't be, or who they think should and should not be doing the work.
Let me ask you this. Do you feel, and maybe this is a loaded question because coming from Ann James, but do you feel that at some point, facilitators of intimacy should come together and create a code of ethics of how we show up in rooms, not necessarily what the job is, but what we will not do. Like intimacy coordinators, directors, facilitators, all the names will never intentionally cause harm in a room. And this is why. Because we believe in being actor-led, because we believe that placeholders should always be a part of choreography, because we believe, it's a no-brainer. To me, it says that we, as no matter what element of P you're part of, that we all agree on these 10 things, like a Bill of Rights or something.
Yeah.
I'm craving that. What do you think about that?
The 10 Commandments.
Something like that.
Yeah. If you were somehow able to get the voice of intimacy directors all into one room and make a pact like that, just sort of, I feel like we would all agree. I really do.
Same.
So we would agree that we're not trying to cause harm at all. And the reasons for that, and who we are as people that want to do this work, because not just everybody can do it. It takes some selfless work to be able to be in a room doing this to help other people. You're not there for yourself all the time. I feel like that is one of the key ingredients to intimacy direction. And
so true.
And if you're not helping, then for you.
Right.
It's not for everyone. It does take training. It does take an eye in movement, an eye on the human body to know what it can and cannot do, and what it should and should not do, and what some people are limited to do or can do more than other people. It's so individualized that I think coming up with hard rules. I always say that I don't like to say always, and I don't like to say never.
Right.
Because usually that's not true. There's, except for, there's always a way to do it, and it isn't always the same way.
Yes.
There's a way to tell that story. And if you can't figure it out right then, open it up to the room. That's what the actors are there for. They know these characters better than I do most of the time. They should, at least. And so a lot of times when I'm choreographing, I'm asking actors the questions the whole time.
I want to ask you all about what, if you could teach classes, what would they be now? You need to come to New York and hang out with me and do something at Lincoln Center with me. You want to, we gotta, this could be a two-parter.
Tonia, all this has just been so stimulating and so exciting and so just interesting to hear this journey and where this field has been, and very curious about where you hope it's going. I definitely want to hear that from you. And just in thinking about the whole intimacy community continuing to shape this movement in this work, I just want to shout out and remind our listeners that part of our season 3 that we came back for is that we do have a survey for intimacy professionals, just to hear about some of these questions that we've been asking our guests on these episodes of how y'all who are listening and do this work found and entered the work, what your training was like, gaps, things you're longing for, where you think the field's going. There's a lot of juicy stuff. And just as we continue kind of building this community and maybe hopefully, aligning our values, but not the way that we all do this into one codified way, I think it would be really fantastic to just hear from all the folks at home and put our collective consciousness together.
I feel like, from my view on the outside, a little more support for each other. I feel like there's been progress, a lot of progress. There's starting to be conferences and summits and things like that to try to get everybody into one room, which is really, really helpful to get us all into one room so we can at least talk to each other and be people and not just choreographers and intimacy directors and leaders of a movement. But at the end of the day, we're all just people, and we're all trying to make this a better industry for everybody. It's not about, I want to be the most famous and I want to be at the top of everything and I don't care about anyone else. This is what I'm doing and I'm keeping this door closed behind me. That's not ever what I intended for this to be.
Yeah.
It was never about that. It was always, everyone has some kind of privilege. And it's important that you use your privilege to help people that don't have those privileges, whatever they are. And if you are able to go to a workshop, that's a privilege already. And so trying to, I think, introduce this to people on the outside of the intimacy direction community more, trying to reach out to people who don't need to be intimacy directors. I think people fall in love with it because it's so magical, and it is. It's when you see it work in front of you and you're like, that's magic. And I want to be part of that magic. But that you don't have to be an intimacy director to be part of that magic. You can be in the room and not necessarily be the person making that moment happen. That's why it's a collaboration. It's not about the one person in that room doing this. So I feel like as a community, we should all be a little more supportive of the process of learning it and the process of including people that are not meant to be intimacy directors into the room as what they can contribute. Because it's not for everybody.
As a holistic culture shift in our field, we want folks to have these tools and frameworks and language and understanding, even if you're not doing the work, so that we all can become strengthened in our collaboration and so that we can collectively move towards consent culture.
Right.
Everyone can be part of this magic, and you can be part of the magic and not have to have this title. I love that so much. Thank you for speaking.
Yeah. And I also hope for more grace in the room. I know that later on, as the years went by, I started becoming scared of what I could and could not say in the room as a choreographer of if I'm dealing with any topic that isn't something 100% familiar to me, or that I feel like I don't have the right to talk about certain things. And I feel like would love for there to be a little more grace in the mistakes that are being made, by humans trying to help. I know that there's impact versus intent. Yes. And I do understand that pain and hurt can be caused. I just wish there would be a little bit more grace in the acknowledgement of the mistakes that we make. And that way we can move forward in a more peaceful way, in a more inclusive way, so that we don't feel like we're pointing people out and then isolating them.
Yeah. That really makes me think of, and I want to uplift, I always make community agreements when I work in spaces, and this has become the most popular and everyone's favorite. And this is one I learned from Nicole Brewer, who's a theater educator and artist, from her anti-racist theater workshop. And she says, everyone gets the grace to speak in draft and the responsibility to edit a wrong or harmful draft. And we can hold compassion and accountability, and we have to have these conversations, even if we don't have the perfect or most current way to talk about it or ask. And so I just love that grace to be I'm speaking in draft. I'm trying to find something about this. And if somebody says that's really harmful, or that's fucked up, or that's wrong that you said, then it's on you to be I'm so sorry. Let me edit my draft and say what I was actually trying to say and take accountability. But we can't not have these conversations just because we're too scared we'll say the wrong thing.
That's the argument against DEI, is that people are afraid to talk at all. And I don't think that's the purpose of it.
No.
And I think that misunderstanding is what is a bridge that we need to sort of make sure that that's not the message of isolation and kicking people out of the room for making mistakes.
Yeah. What does it serve to punish people or throw people out forever for messing up?
Right.
It just creates fear that will happen to us, and then people double down on,
and you're coming full, because we used to isolate people out of the room when they were being abused and they would leave the room, and we lost their voices in the theater. Same thing. We need all the voices we can get in theater, especially now when we're being challenged to even have this as an industry. We need to make sure that we're all sticking together and trying to make what art is supposed to do. It's supposed to inspire, and it's supposed to be a mirror of society. And right now the mirror is a little warped.
Yeah. Funhouse mirror.
It's a funhouse mirror. And I think, with the institutions of grace, with calling people in, with forgiveness, with excitement and enthusiasm, and looking forward to becoming community and being community based and having ideas that we can all believe in and that we can all sign on the dotted line for, we'll have a better industry that is forward thinking and ego deficient. I'm saying that to myself. It's very easy to get swept up in like really having an impact in rooms. And that's fine. That's the art of it. We are artists creating art with community. And until we can find a way to kind of come together on that, I think we'll still be in these little branches. And what we need to be is a tree.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm happy. I like trees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tonia, it
Oh
has
my
been
God.
such an absolute joy and honor to
Thank you
get to
so
talk
much
to
for
you
having
and
me.
hear from you.
It's so nice to be here with minded
my
folks.
Yes.
Our absolute pleasure. Keep an eye out for Tonia's book. I cannot wait to read it. Thanks for tuning in.
Yay.
Bye, y'all.